Our circulatory system is a complex path of arteries and veins that carry blood throughout our bodies. Sometimes there are blockages in the legs that can cause problems. Dr. Brent Greenberg is here to talk to us about what's known as deep vein thrombosis. He's a provider at Carolina Vein Specialists, which has locations in Greensboro and Winston-Salem. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Let's talk about deep vein thrombosis, or as some people call it, DVT. What is it? What causes it?
So first of all, what a DVT is, a deep vein thrombosis, is you first have to understand a little bit about the anatomy. Think about veins being just like roads. You have thousands and thousands of small roads that lead into hundreds or dozens of boulevards that eventually lead to a handful of highways, right? A DVT is like a major truck crash on the highway that blocks all the traffic. And so when that happens, none of the cars can pass through. So what do cars do? They back up, and they back up into the surface streets. And that's where DVT becomes a problem, because if it's big enough and blocks a big enough vessel, it can affect the overall outflow of the leg and result in swelling and significant discomfort. The bigger concern with DVT, especially ones that form above the knee, there are a certain small percentage of those that can result into what's called a pulmonary embolus, which is a blood clot that can break off and shoot to the lungs, and that can be relatively dangerous and concerning. But in most cases, people with DVTs don't have that. But the concern is you hear a lot on the news about someone who had a DVT and died, or they had a terrible problem that affected their ability to function at work, or something chronic like that.
What causes a DVT?
So a DVT has multiple reasons. Sometimes there's a genetic predisposition where you have a problem with the thickening and thinning of the blood, and you have certain sort of genetic conditions in which predispose you. So this is sort of something that can sometimes run in families, or sometimes your own body will sort of create this situation on its own. But in a lot of cases, it has to do with situations in which people are either prolonged sitting in long periods. So we hear about people who do long flights, international flights, and they're stuck in these small spaces in the seats, or they've been ill and been bed rested for a long time, or if there's been some sort of trauma. And in some cases, it can happen even after surgical intervention. A lot of times we hear about this from like joint replacements or something. Now, in most cases, doctors will put patients on a medicine to thin the blood just enough to reduce that risk of happening. But most of the time it's going to happen in what we call provoked, where something had caused it, as opposed to something where it just came out of the blue.
But something causing it wouldn't be like a deep bruise or anything like that.
No, that's really uncommon for that. If it's just a trip and fall and a soft tissue injury, no. But if you had an underlying predisposing condition, that might tip the scale into causing a clot. But not all blood clots are the same. Some are, the big scary ones you hear about are we talk about the big highway, but in the calf, for instance, there are lots of vessels that can form clot in the deeper part, but there's lots of highways around it to circulate around it. And so a lot of times those can be a little uncomfortable, but because there's enough blood flow around it, it's really not going to cause too much trouble for most people.
Interesting. Well,
so it's a big spectrum.
Yeah, if people have, you know, a symptom, what would it be?
So most of the time it's going to be pain. It's going to be swelling if it's a big enough clot. It can cause itching and aching and discomfort, particularly when you're walking, because the calf muscles are trying to squeeze the blood out as you walk. But sometimes may not even notice it. Sometimes people will undergo a procedure and not even realize it, and it can be accidentally discovered on an ultrasound scan when something else is being looked at.
Wow.
But in most cases, people are going to notice a discomfort there.
But it's not something you should ignore.
No, definitely should not ignore, because you sometimes can't tell with the early symptoms if they're going to evolve into something. A lot of people think I've got a clot and my aunt had one, and so she was on a blood thinner and it fixed it. That's not what happens with blood thinners. Blood thinners protect you from the clot advancing. It doesn't stop, it doesn't dissolve the clot. Your body's own immune response will break up the clot over time, but it has to be evaluated, managed, and monitored so that it doesn't turn into something big.
Gosh. Interesting. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Good information.